Yo, what's up, people? This is Frank Scappaticci and Carlos San Diego from Grayline Investments. Today, we're going to be discussing what sucks about sales. Today, we want to talk. It's very flashy, and like people who do real estate education, all these gurus, they always talk about like the hack and how easy it is to start selling stuff. But I think we know, in the reality, sales is really difficult. Doesn't matter if you're selling real estate or if you're selling insurance, cars, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's tough. So we're going to talk about how sales can suck and how to overcome that stuff and be a good salesman, right? Your resilience, all that stuff. So I hope the viewers out there have an actionable takeaway or learn something from us, or at least have some fun. But let's get into it. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to be the interviewer today. So I'm going to ask you questions. All right.
Cool.
So I'm going to, since the tone is, the untold truth about how sales sucks, what's your worst experience in sales? What's your worst deal or worst thing you've ever had to do?
To your point, sales can be misleading when you look up stuff on the internet and look up podcasts and read books. It makes it seem like sales can be easy if you just follow some certain steps. But with sales, there's definitely a good, a bad, and the ugly. And I feel like the bad and the ugly are what's more prevalent most of the time. So I have, I've been in sales professionally, I would say, for the last 5 to 6 years. Doing it in real estate as well as doing it in the medical device field as well. So I have real bad real estate stories and a bad non-real estate stories. I don't know if there's one that you prefer.
Let's do the non-real estate one, and then we'll do the real estate.
Cool. Yeah, so I was in med device sales, and it was my first time working with a certain doctor. So what I did, I was in the ENT space, and I show up to their cases into the OR, into the operational room. And a lot of times, this was my first time working with the doctor, and he requested a certain product of ours for me to bring. So I brought the product, and I'm in there in the OR, and it comes to the time where he asks to, hey, can I get that product now? And the product that I had was incorrect. So I didn't have the right product that he needed, for the surgery in the OR. It's kind of a big deal and kind of it's kind of one of those situations where your body temperature just skyrockets to like 150 immediately. So I'm like already starting to like bust out in sweats. And he's like, wait, you don't have it? And the truth of the matter was I was told the wrong product to bring, but I didn't want to, I didn't think it was appropriate to kind of like play the blame game at that point. So I just said I didn't have it. And he ended up kicking me out of the OR. So I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with med device sales or being in an OR, but there are times, where the doctor, they run the room, and if they feel like you have no value in there, they'll kick you out. So I got kicked out, and it was a pretty crappy feeling. It was my first time working.
Yeah. Before you go further, did they make it?
Yeah. So
it's probably like we have 3 people watching. They're probably like, "Oh my God, Carlos San Diego's a murderer."
So that was ENT, and it's really like elective type procedures. So it's nothing life threatening. And a good thing about our products that I was working with all the time is, for the most part, they're pretty interchangeable. They kind of all do very similar things. It's just some of the products are better fitted for certain sinuses than the other. So he was just looking for a certain product that fit in a certain sinus, and I didn't have that one. So he kicked me out. I felt pretty crappy. I was very pumped up about going to meet that doctor for the first time. But after he kicked me out, I didn't want to just let that be. So what I did is I waited for his case to finish. And sometimes these cases run from 2 to 4 hours. So probably waited about 45 minutes for this one. And I waited to speak to him afterwards. For me, I think, when you screw up when it comes to sales, my thing is you own up to it. I'm sure there's probably some people that look to place the blame other places, but that's not how I like to operate. Even though, honestly, in this situation, I was accidentally told the wrong product. But I waited for him to finish the case, and then I met with him one-on-one afterwards. After he kind of took all of his all of his stuff off, and he stepped out of the OR. I stepped up to him and I just owned up to it, and I was like, "Hey, doctor, I apologize. I didn't have the right product for you. I really hate for this to be my first impression with you, because I really know the type of value that I can provide." The conversation was a little bit different than that, but that was the message that I wanted to convey was, I kind of bet on myself, like, hey, I screwed up here, but I owned up to it. And, you can count on me to get better and not do that again. So to make a long story short, everyone's human. When you give a genuine apology, say, hey, I screwed up, I apologize, but I'll be better moving forward. He was like, he relaxed and he was like, okay, that's fine. Next time I have a case, he still wasn't very nice, but he was like, all right, next time I have a case and I need you, I'll call you in again. So a good point with this is sometimes with your bad calls, you can't fix them overnight. You can't just slap a Band-Aid on them. These are real relationships you're trying to build and cultivate. So sometimes these do take more than one meeting, and this one in particular did. So he did invite me back, and basically what I tried to do, I made sure I had the right product. But what I really tried to do with him too is you try to find other areas where you can provide value. Like you want to raise the value of yourself. Like the product that I brought, that's really the value. At the end of the day, he didn't need me. I'm really just bringing that product. So I wanted to. I always look for other ways to provide value. So I sit in a lot of other cases with other doctors, and you pay attention to little different techniques that they use. So with this particular doctor that I didn't have a good start with, I started making recommendations to him. Things that I saw other doctors do. And you do have to have a little bit of social awareness when you do this. Me being new and not having a great first impression, I didn't want to just step up there and just start, giving him advice. That wouldn't come off right. So, have some social awareness. And when the time was right, I would say, hey, doctor, I saw Dr. So-and-so from down the hall. When he was kind of working in this sinus, he would use this technique. So I don't remember exactly what I recommended at the time, but it was about a technique in the certain sinus, and he actually did it, and he ended up getting better results. So from there, I know I started to kind of turn the tide where I was kind of like, just starting to provide value outside of what my product could bring. And, outside of that, I was very helpful with his staff. And in time, and like I said, this wasn't overnight. This maybe took a month to 2 months. In time, his staff got to know me. They really enjoyed me. The product was good. So I didn't really have to worry there. I just made sure I always brought the right stuff. And kind of after, all these cases of me coming in, helping the staff out, providing like advice that I see other doctors doing, he was a lot more accepting of me. And before I knew it, I kind of became part of the team. And that's what you're going for, at least in device sales. Like that's the ultimate goal with the staff. They start asking, hey, is Carlo coming to this case? Or why not? Should I call Carlo? When you have the staff kind of on your side and the doctors on your side, that's when, you do less selling. At that point, I ended up getting to a point with this doctor where our relationship was good. He trusted me, where if I made recommendations, like, hey, doctor, I was looking at your case count for next month. I think you should order this. He doesn't even need to like analyze it or really make a decision. He's like, okay, do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, he gave you the checkbook,
Right, exactly.
That's nice. It's a good message. It's like deal falls through, right? Or the transaction doesn't close for whatever reason, right? Like if you can't close that transaction, what's the next quickest way to add value to that consumer or client, right?
Exactly.
I actually went through a similar experience. We were going to do a flip, I think it was a month or two ago, on a house, and the lender was like, yeah, let's do it, like ready to go. And they want to get their point. They were going to get a point at closing, and they're going to get their interest, month one. So they want to get paid. And seller backed out, deal fell apart, right? And we just let the seller go. We didn't try to do a memo or sue them or anything like that. And we went back to the lender and we're like, hey, deal's going to fall through. Sorry. Like the revenue you were going to get, I can't give it to you, but I got a buddy over here that wants to buy a house. I'll introduce you guys, do the loan, whatever. Right. Like that's like the real estate example or one.
We found different ways to provide value in that situation.
Yeah. Like don't show up empty handed when you just took, either money or something out of someone's pocket. You know what I mean? Like, because eventually in sales, you are not going to come through. Right? Yeah. The product's going to fail you. Your company's going to fail you. Another party in the transaction, especially if you're a broker or a wholesaler, is going to fail you. Right? So like, what's next? Cash buyer, same thing. Like, we got another deal. I'll hook you up, man. Like $1,000 under purchase price. Like, let's buy this thing. Something like that.
And you just always got to think, or maybe this is just how I always think in sales, but I always feel like I'm competing with someone or, someone else or someone else's product. So I always try to think, what differentiates me from them, whoever they are. What can I do that's different from them? Because I've seen in the past, and not to keep talking about the med device role, but I've seen other reps get kicked out and then they just leave, and I don't know the full story all the time, but I'm always like, I just feel like they just kind of gave up, and now that doctor just has like a bad taste in their mouth with that rep.
Yeah.
And it happened to me. I knew, I was like, I need to salvage this relationship, before it's even really started, but I need to make sure like, we start off on the right foot, even though it wasn't great initially.
Yeah. What's your real estate story? What was the worst thing about wholesaling?
So yeah, I got a couple, shoot. So I can talk about both. The first one I'll touch on, if anyone was in our mastermind group, I talked about this one, and I'll talk about this one because I learned a lot of lessons. I won't tell it as long, but basically, I made an offer. I built great rapport with this guy. He was ex-military just like me, or no, he was actually current military. I was ex-military, but we were able to just like share stories and just really hit it off from a military standpoint. And then I ended up making a cash offer to him, and he was crazy about it. He was like, "Oh, that's great. I think this is going to be good." Then I found out later the numbers that I was using was incorrect. So kind of the same thing with the doctor. I had to call that guy back and own up to it. I was like, "Hey, I'm really sorry that, the prices I used were wrong. Like I apologize." But
it wasn't in the seller's favor. It was like, "Hey, sorry, but you're going to get less money."
Yeah, exactly. It was less money.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Look, we can't pay you that, but we can do creative financing," which is just different ways that we buy homes. And I told him a creative financing option that we could use. And long story short, the numbers I used for that one was incorrect again. So at that point, I just done like a really good job building rapport, but now I had my last few interactions with him, I was giving him bad information. So from him, it's really hard to salvage that sometimes. I mean, I would definitely always try, but especially in real estate, like people want to go with people that they trust. And kind of in that situation, I wouldn't blame that guy for not trusting me anymore. I kind of screwed up twice.
Right.
So I was fortunate enough in that situation that I had a buddy that I could kind of tap on and say, kind of play the whole good cop, bad cop routine, where I was like, I tapped John Plumstead. I was like, "Hey, can you call this owner? I think I'm too far gone at this point with, how I was handling it. Can you step in and try to salvage it?" But the big thing with that, well, first, John was able to step in and salvage it, which was amazing, and a great job by John. But for me, like the biggest thing is you're going to make mistakes in sales. You're not going to get every deal. You might screw up big time like I did, but when you do, you got to make sure you learn from that. So I like to talk about this situation because this was the situation where I made sure I knew what I was talking about when it came to subject to and seller financing or our cash offers. So, it was unfortunate that seller had to have that experience with me, but I almost kind of needed that experience moving forward because I never made that mistake after that. Yeah,
that's the best way to learn is to do. I'm going to take a quick break to do our little self-promotion. If you're enjoying this video, please like, share, subscribe, tag a friend if you can. It helps the algorithms, helps our company out, helps our reach, so we just appreciate it. So thank you. Next question I have for you. This is a mentality question, and this isn't specific to wholesaling, but I'll use wholesaling as the example. We've been through periods where our pipeline was stacked, and we've been through periods where our pipeline, especially around Christmas, was a little light. Just people didn't want to sell. When the pipeline's light, like sometimes I feel like in wholesaling, you can feel like a panhandler, like, "Got any deals?" Like you're just like begging people to like, you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
like the mentality changes for a salesperson. I think everyone can relate to that.
Yeah.
When the pipeline is light and each conversation feels like it's worth $10,000, you know what I'm saying? Like, what do you give? What advice do you give to that person that's like struggling in a light pipeline scenario and how to push through? Like, what advice do you have for them?
This is one of those things where it's easier said than done, but you just can't be discouraged. And I know that's easier said than done because I've literally been in this situation where I feel like I'm never going to find the next deal. The next call that I get, the guy's just going to be a jerk and he's going to laugh at my price. Like you start to find yourself in a funk. What I would say when I would find myself in that situation is really got to kind of remind yourself and bring yourself back to the deals that you did, close, the good deals that you did close. Like for us, we have a good CRM where I'm able to kind of go back and look at the notes of all the deals that I did close. So what I would do is kind of go back there, replay those conversations, look at the notes, and kind of see what I did. And if I'm still doing the same thing, then it's okay. Like sometimes you're gonna fall in a funk. I mean, maybe some great salesmen just always kill it, but I like to think no matter how good of a salesman you are, you're just gonna find yourself in a funk from time to time. It's just the way it is. Maybe you're not speaking to the right leads, or maybe there's some other characteristics that are playing in. But if you're looking back and you find yourself doing the same thing that you were doing when you were closing deals, then I would just say to just keep sawing wood, to just keep trucking and just keep having those conversations, and you'll find the next deal. And I can say that with confidence because I've been in that situation a couple times this year where I felt like I wasn't sure. I used to have a goal of trying to get a deal a day, and sales can be pretty claustrophobic. You can find yourself on a Wednesday and not having closed any deals yet, and you just feel like the room is just closing down on you. One thing that Adam, he's the acquisitions manager with Grayline, what him and I used to do is, like when he was in a funk, he would give me a call. When I was in a funk, I would give him a call, and we would just kind of encourage each other. And I would tell him the same thing I'm saying now. Is I'm like, dude, you were killing it before. If you're doing the same thing now, like you're doing the right things, man. You just might not be talking to the right people. For us, our strategy is volume. So we know that we're going to have more and more conversations. So I told him hey man, just keep jumping on the phone.
Yeah.
Keep calling people. Eventually you will find the person that is looking for the service that we can provide. It can seem bleak at times, but you just kind of got to have faith. My biggest thing is to don't be discouraged. Not making phone calls is definitely not going to close deals. So,
yeah, exactly. It's like, I agree. I think number one thing, if the pipeline's light and you have trouble closing deals, hustle can solve a lot of problems. Pick up the phone. Even if you're like the acquisition manager or the dispo lead, stuff's not moving, like until you've exhausted your options, the things should be sold, like you haven't done your job until you've exerted some hustle. So that's definitely part of it.
For sure.
What you alluded to as the answer, I think it kind of can be described as if the pipeline's light and you're feeling down, right? You're like the struggling sales guy, begging for pennies, right? Like, dude, just go back to your attitude when the pipeline was full. Like I thought when, like for example, we got a home in Cape Coral I'm selling right now. And now I got 3 cash buyers that want it, right? And this is a home that we own. We bought it already.
Yeah.
And now like the 5th person that's calling me, like, I got cash, I'll buy this thing. Like I told you before, my text was like, yeah, I got 1 million buyers in this thing, dude. Like, I'll see what I can do for you, but I don't know. I might not be able to get you in. And like, so that's a good negotiation tactic on my part because that dude's going to offer me $15,000 more than the price, Yeah. But I'm only dripping with swag because the pipeline's really heavy.
Right. Yeah.
Like, but that you got to remember that
mentality.
You have to remember that. So, like when the company makes you strong, like double down. When the company makes you weak, go back to how you felt when the company was doing strong.
It's funny. Like mentality is so big. It's like when there's, I've had some good weeks where I've, closed maybe 3 or 4 or 5 deals in a week. And when you've kind of done that, everybody you talk to, like when you've closed a lot of deals that week, everybody you talk to, I found myself, having no pressure. Like I didn't seem thirsty or like, just like needed to find every deal there was. I was doing what I needed to do, being a salesman, trying to find the right deals for us. And I found that I would be a lot more successful in those conversations as opposed to the ones where if I hadn't had a deal, you could almost sense the desperation in my voice
right.
Talking to sellers, and they could sense it too. So, when on the flip side of that, when I was giving off the impression that we don't need to buy your house, they were much more likely to, be more accepting of our price.
Yeah, it's. I just think about all my friends that are salespeople that have struggled. Like my brother is a sales guy, and I'm just imagining him talking to because he sells software to like hedge funds and banks. Yeah. And I'm imagining him like a week before quota is calculated and he has no deals, and like his client's like, what does your software do? And he's just sitting there like, everything.
Yeah. That's that. Yeah, that's that.
Desperate for deals, you know.
That thirst. Yeah, it's like the world is just like closing in on you for sure.
Yeah. But you know, to eat what you kill industry, right?
Oh yeah.
So we've focused on the negative things about being in sales and being always in pursuit. What's the most rewarding thing? What's the most positive thing?
It's being able to help people, honestly. You know, when I started working with you guys here at Grayline, you know, obviously you kind of get into real estate because of the money. But then you kind of find yourself actually helping people out of situations, and it is very gratifying. I can talk about one that was both, actually. It's funny you asked this question because this one started out terribly, but it ended up being really good. So in this one, it's a real estate example. This was when I was on acquisitions, and I called a seller and, you know, building rapport, asking him about the property, and I ended up making my offer, and my offer was much lower than what he was expecting. And let me add some context. This guy was military, and I think he was being restationed, so he was looking to move, and he really needed to sell his property. So the motivation was very, very high. Probably very, very high with kind of how emotionally he got with me. So he needed to sell, and when I gave my offer, it was pretty low. So he flipped out on me. He was like, "See, it's people like you who are just trying to take advantage of people in my situation." Like, you know, he didn't say it was a scam, but he was like, you guys are horrible people, like this and this and that. So this was one of the calls that just started off horribly. Like he said, right. You know, he was just like, "Who do you guys think you are? You're not helping anyone." So obviously I was taken aback, but I used that opportunity, obviously, to apologize to him. And I was like, "Hey, sir, you know, I'm so sorry that you feel that way, but, you know, we don't just have a cash offer." So what I'm getting at, too, is when you find yourself in this situation, what really helped me out is to have multiple solutions for them. Yeah. If you have multiple solutions, you come off more as a problem solver as opposed to some guy that's just finding a deal. So back to the conversation, you know, I apologized to the guy, and I was like, "Hey, sir, I really apologize that you feel that way. But to be honest, you know, yeah, I do have the cash offer, but we have other offers. I have other offers that I can present you. You know, I usually just present the cash offer because that's normally what people are interested in. But, you know, here at Grayline, sir, we really want to solve problems. So, you know, yeah, that's our cash offer, but I can present you a subject to offer where we can pay your mortgage down." And I started telling them different options that we could do. And this whole kind of demeanor changed. Like I said, people are human. If you apologize, you know, genuinely, and you own up to it, then they'll kind of, you know, they'll kind of bring their guard down a little. Yeah. But then I just started going into, "Hey, you know, sir, I'm trying to be a problem solver. You know, I don't, you know, we're not just in this for a quick buck. That's why we just don't have the cash offer. We do have other offers, and, you know, I apologize I didn't bring them up to the table initially, but these are the different ways we can, you know, buy your house." And long story short, he ended up going with the cash offer. Which is funny because he thought it was so low. At the end of the day, it's funny how sales can be like that.
People don't appreciate the whole like they avoid the closing costs. So like when they sell at 75% or 70% of it's maybe if it's in bad condition, maybe they're selling at 80% of what it's worth. You know what I mean? But it's
actually whatever. So yeah, and I actually remembered another detail. Like another issue he had was he had a lot of junk in his house that he didn't want to get rid of, or yeah, that he didn't want to just like get rid of it. So like part of the deal, you know, other than me giving him these different options, presenting myself as a problem solver as opposed to just a guy with a cash offer.
Yeah,
he didn't know that we necessarily buy as is at this point. So in sales, for all you guys, you should learn like the different levers that you have within your own process that you can kind of pull and give. So I knew that we buy properties as is, meaning we'll take it exactly in the condition that it's in right now. But I hadn't shared that information with him yet. So when he got to that point, I was like, "Hey, how about this too? You know, I'll still offer my price, but we'll also, like, all the stuff that you don't want to take care of, just leave it in the house and we'll take care of it."
Right.
And that was another thing that he was like, "Oh, okay, all right, man. You know what? That's great." So I was just solving all these problems for him. And a big thing with that is just like listening, making sure you know what their actual problems are. So I knew the problems was he needed to sell fast, but he needed to get out of there because he was restationing and he didn't know what to do with all this junk. We could buy his place and he could leave his junk in there and we would take care of it. So at the end of the day, we were able to provide him everything he was asking for, and he was very, very appreciative of it. So that was one deal that was like the full spectrum. In the beginning, he, called me like a terrible person, but at the end of it, he was just like so thankful that, he ended up working with us.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem solver, a trusted advisor, like that's what salespeople want to get to. You start out as a salesperson and then you want to get to the trusted advisor level. Yeah. One thing I'm like learning is at the beginning, you are a salesperson. Like, don't be scared to just tell people you're a salesperson. Like one time I was on the phone and a guy was like, what's this all about? Whatever. I was like, hey man, I'm cold calling you, man. Like I got like I just tell them. I'm like, yeah. And some people are going to be, click, but they're uninterested anyway. And that other person's like, oh, okay, this is kind of funny, like he's trying to build rapport. Where the hell was I going with this? But what I was going to say is, shit, I'm forgetting. You got the gist of it. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. But yeah, like, I mean, you hit on it there too. I mean, one big thing is being one thing I try to do is be collaborative with them. I try to make them a part of the solution, whether they are or not. I try to make them a part of the solution so they feel like, the more they feel like they're a part of the solution, the more they'll just be, down for, whatever price you give them. So it's kind of like, again, with that deal, the guy didn't know what to do with all his junk. And I was like, you know what? I think, if you just leave it in there, we'll take care of it. So like just working together to come up with these solutions, they're just, I don't know, it just really helps with closing that deal at the end of the day.
It's awesome you say that, right? Because there's definitely wholesalers that would have said, oh, we got to move all the stuff. Then like, my price got to come down from 75 grand to 73 because I got to pay for the movers, right? Yeah. Like they're like immediately trying to just like be the hammer and just constantly get them down. Like I think transparency, especially with certain sellers, is super important. Like I remember I've been on the phone with people and they'll be like, well, why would I take this offer, if I could just list it on the MLS and sell it for a little bit more? And depending on what condition the house is in, like I've told people like, hey, listen, if you go through that process, there is a decent chance you will make more money. What I'm providing you is a price and a convenience.
Exactly.
You might be able to make $5,000 more. Like I'm not going to lie to you, right? And I've seen that work. So like listen, like if there's nothing wrong with that, there's people out there that are like, you know what? I live 1,000 miles away. I don't feel like going to get that stuff, and I don't feel like getting nickel and dimed after inspections. Like my time's worth more than that. All right, peace.
Yeah.
I'll depart with the property. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, totally.
That's a fair handshake, right?
And because we're like, especially the way we operate is, everything is long distance. I think it's very important to be transparent, because a lot of people, especially or when our assistants call, like a lot of people think you're a scam. I feel like that's a lot of people's first thought sometimes. But if you're just very transparent and you're very genuine, like at the end of the day, you'll break them down and you'll earn their trust.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Any other advice for someone who's is brand new to sales? First month, first year, and they still sound like a sales cartoony, person.
Man, there's
what advice do you have for them?
Like hustle and don't be discouraged. Like I said before, you could have a bad phone call that makes you afraid to jump back on the call for the next 10 or 15 minutes or 30 minutes, but you're not going to close any deals doing imaginary conversations in your head. Sometimes you just got to say, screw it. I'm going to make this call and just start going through with it. Sometimes it's easy for some people to like call your friend at first, call like somebody, someone who's easy to talk to and just get used to talking on the phone as a warm-up. I've done that before, or I've done like mini role plays with some of my coworkers just before I really start making those phone calls and I'll get you right. Trust, being someone who they can trust. I can't stress that enough. Sales these days, like being a salesman, kind of has a sort of stigma, maybe in the past, but and I mentioned this in our last talk, but so much of sales now is relationship-based sales. I think people will buy from those who they trust and who they like. But the first thing is they got to trust that you can do what you say you're going to do. And then again, if they like you, I think that's the way the world works.
Yeah, trust is everything, man, for sure. Well, I appreciate it, bro. I'm gonna close this up. We hit the 30-minute mark. I know we're busy. So guys, Gray Line Investments. If you're not familiar with us, our goal, we're trying to improve lives through real estate. We buy and sell houses. We also teach people how to create the real estate career, how to get started. If you want to get on our buyers list, go to graylineinvestments.com. If you're interested in joining our mastermind, educating yourself, getting connected, graylineacademy.com. So check us out. Happy to help. Love to talk about this stuff. Drop a comment if you want to reach out to us, or shoot us a note by going to our website. All right. Appreciate it, y'all.
Thanks, Frank. Thanks, everyone.
Peace.